Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Hurry, step right up. We're glad to have you here. It's my pleasure and honor, and it really is, to welcome back Derek Brose. You know him as Global Witness. And Derek, I was just thinking today before we went on, it's always the weirdest thing. You know, back when I was a Pentecostal evangelist, and, you know, back when I was doing what I was doing and believing what I was believing, I had this, I was an evangelist. I went from church to church to church, and I began to see this one lady all the time. And I would see her from coast to coast, border to border. I would see her everywhere. And finally, I went up to her and I said, I see you everywhere, but I know you don't like me. What's going on? And we had this tradition that I picked up from R.W. Shambach. I don't know if you remember that name or not, but people would bring pies and they'd put them on this table at the front of the church. And after the service, you know, you'd have a piece of pie with people. And my favorite was pecan pie. And this lady said, for 18 months, I've been bringing poisoned pecan pies, because I know that's your favorite, and putting it on this table, trying to kill you. And I watch you eat it, and it never bothers you. And I don't know what's going on. And for some reason, all of this time, even back when I was doing stuff that wasn't really true, wasn't really right, I've had, you know, and Paul, I'm not a big fan of Paul, but every now and then he steals some good stuff and maybe says some good stuff just because he's a good liar. He said, no weapon formed against us will prosper. That doesn't mean the weapon doesn't come at you, but it just means it doesn't prosper. How do you explain something like that when a person's in an atmosphere of error, but yet they're still being protected?
Jeff, you and I have talked about the compression of dimensions. We've talked about the true belief in Christians and people. And the reality is I don't believe that most people that think they believe in their traditions. They believe because their father told them to believe and their mother told them to believe. They don't actually believe in these things. And it isn't until you truly begin to actually see it. And the remarkable thing is these aren't, you know, we've used these euphemisms, you know, oh, what a coincidence. Oh, by happenstance, this happened. There's no such thing. There is no such thing as coincidence. There is no such thing as accidents. There's no such thing as happenstance. All of these are intended to diminish the divine and the works of the enemy. Right? All of those things that we say,
that's a great point. It's the divine and the works of the enemy.
No question about it. Because look, they're both working on the same dimensions from a physical standpoint, so you can't see them. And you become the operative of either. As you've heard me say, that we are co-creators. We either co-create with the enemy or we co-create with the Father. And so when you want to look at the enemy's works, well, you look at that woman delivering you poison pies. Now, if she is the enemy working poison pies, then you bet your bottom dollar that in that same realm of the entities that are working for evil are entities working for good on your behalf. You cannot say, I believe in the Father, and not at the same time, but I don't believe in Satan. Right? If you don't believe in Satan, then where is it that you think you're at? Where is it that you think that all of this evil in this world, that we can justify the murder of millions of people in the name of safety and security? And you know, I mean, it's crazy to think that people want to so voluntarily bury their head in the sand. But this is also part of the programming, that we have been led down this path. As I said, those words, those phrases, this is where black magic comes in. That our spoken word is, if the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and he spoke the word and created all things, that vibration, well, then clearly that same power in us in the spoken word is being used by the enemy or being used by the Father. So what we say, what comes out of our mouth, is everything. So if you want to witness the enemy's works, look around you. They're everywhere. You want to witness the Father's works, you're going to have to search high and low to find those people.
And you know, it's funny because as you say that, I'm reminded of the verse in the first century Greek scriptures where the master is quoted as saying, there will be people that come to me and say, but in your name we did great miracles. In your name we cast out devils. In your name, we did many mighty works. So if you sit back and you look at this objectively, and if you can try to get yourself outside whatever paradigm you're in, if you're witnessing supernatural activity in your life, it's either coming from the Father or it's coming from the enemy. And the real skill is learning which one. And Sandra said this last night on our Serpent and Dove show, that typically in your mind, whether there's voices or not, we'll get to that maybe later, but you hear basically two things. It's like the angel on one shoulder, the devil on the other. You'll hear from the Father and you'll hear from the enemy. And the maturity and the trick, if you will, is learning to distinguish which voice is which and which activity is coming from which source.
Well, this is why Christ said, you will know them by their fruit.
Derek, let me stop you right there, because in the chat room, we just have a visit from Melia Allen.
Ah, well, Melia, hey, Melia, get with it. What was it? Legs or back? I think it's one of the two. She's at the gym working out. So everybody give Melia a little encouragement. She needs it today. She didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night. People were taking shots at her daughter, and I'm not talking verbal shots. I'm talking physical gunshots. So
let me take a second to answer a question I heard Melia ask you in one of your shows. She was talking about people laying hands on people and having them fall out and stuff like that. And she asked if she wondered if Jeff ever did that. Melia, let me tell you a little story. It's her back. I was so bad that, Derek, if you've ever seen any of the Pentecostal evangelists, they'll usually have like a little bottle of oil, like anointing oil. And when people come up to pray for them, they'll take the oil and they'll put a little oil on their finger and they'll put it on their forehead and pray for the people.
Yep.
I didn't need no oil. I was so full of arrogance and so full of ego. And the amazing thing is that these people let me do this because I'm preaching, I'm in a suit. You're sweaty, right? No matter if you're in a nice air-conditioned church, you're sweaty. When the people would come up to get prayed for by me, I would wipe the sweat off my brow and anoint them with the sweat off my brow. And I'm telling you, I never had one person back off. They all said, yeah, let me have some of it. And Melia, I did have people that would fall out, but here's the key, Derek. I didn't have any catchers. So if you went down, you better make sure you're going down, quote unquote, in the spirit. And I've seen people crack their heads on pews and floors, and never did I see anybody get hurt. So Melia says, ew, but I never saw anybody get hurt. And I still to this day, I'm like, but it was error. How come these people weren't cracking their heads wide open? So yeah, Melia, I was involved in that. I'd have people Jericho marching around the church. I'd have them laying around like cordwood all stacked up. Yeah, we were Pentecostal to the core. That's disgusting.
That's disgusting. Well, I'm glad I didn't go to your church.
Oh, man.
I'd have had Jeff sweat all over me.
That's just it's so disgusting when you think about it. So I had to answer Melia's question. Sorry about that.
Well, good to see you, Melia. Love you. So
Before you were so rudely interrupted.
Yes, before we were so rudely interrupted by Melia. So I was saying that we will know them by their fruits. So you were talking about essentially the word that people throw around, like, that they really know what they're talking about. They go, I have discernment. The word discernment is somehow they have discernment, but yet they can't see that the devil is God anywhere in the Bible, right? Or calls himself God, even though he says he does. Like that. So immediately their discernment is self-induced or self-imposed, right? And this is our arrogance. Yeah. The reality is
it's usually the gift of suspicion, Derek.
It's the gift of suspicion, but there is something to look at it. Look, when and I would address a couple things that you said, is that Father said, seek ye first the kingdom and his righteousness, and then all of these things will be added unto you. Also speaking of food, all the things that you need, but also speaking everything here, what you have right here, right? What you know. So when you know the Father, you know the attributes of the Father. And the scriptures explain to you the attributes of the Father. Love, mercy, peace, forgiveness, all of them derivatives of love. And the attributes of the enemy is lies, murder, mayhem, right? Chaos. jealousy, all of this. And I always marvel that people go, oh, I love the one and only creator and everything, and he's a jealous God. And I'm like, seriously, if you're the creator of everything, what could you possibly be jealous of?
And what could you possibly wrathful for or want revenge on?
Seriously. I mean, you created it. Oh boy, that makes me mad. I created that thing and it pissed in that corner. It's like, seriously, this is what I mean. People believe that they have discernment. Now, going back to what you said, that he will say, Lord, didn't we cast out demons in your name? Didn't we do these things in your name? Well, all you have to do is go online and look at videos of demons being cast out and these pastors smacking people in the head and then flopping around literally. I go, if you want to understand, you want to witness what demonic activity looks like, just watch that. Because that isn't the Father. What makes you think you know the Father when you don't recognize that as being evil? I mean, it's astonishing to me that their eyes can't see these things. But more importantly, the most important part of that scripture that you're speaking of is that they'll say, many will come to me and say, Lord, Lord, didn't we do these things in your name? In other words, they think they know him. They all believe that they know him. That's why they're like, what are you talking about? I casted out demons in your name. And he says, I never knew you. So that right there is evidence that they were worshiping a God that wasn't the Father. He says it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So they're in church. They're really in church. They're really paying their tithes. They're really going to church 3-4 times a week. They're really carrying their Bibles. They're really being good Christians. They're really in church. But this God that they're worshiping, that's the God they expected to see when they were done with whatever they're doing here. And then they actually see the real God and they're like, but wait a minute. And he's like, I never knew you. I'm not the God that you guys have been worshiping.
Yeah. Now, Jeff, let me tell you a story, because the I never knew you part. And I want everybody to listen to this really carefully, because we are, as I said, co-creators.
Yes.
Now, the divinity in us is the creation of the Father. The flesh and our animalistic activity is the creation of the enemy.
100% right.
Okay. So with that said, when he says, I never knew you, my brother-in-law is a builder, amazing guy, builds cabinetry, remodels homes, just an extremely talented individual. And his work is remarkable. And he has this curio with a bunch of dishes in his dining room. And and it's the very first thing that he made. So he made it in carpentry school. And so he made this curio. It's beautiful, beautiful hardware, etched glass, everything. And every time he shows it to anyone, and I mean anyone, he'll go, oh, this is the first thing that I made. It's gorgeous. And you don't recognize anything wrong with it. But as the creator, you recognize your work.
Right.
So the creator of this, in this gentleman, his name is Mark, he points out on the top trim that he cut the top piece of trim on the front too short. So the miter cut, he had to cut another miter cut and add a piece. So there's a tiny thin line in that. And he always points that out as his only flaw in it. And I pointed out to him, I said, it's remarkable that you point that out as your only flaw. But if you sold that and it was resold and resold and resold and refinished and painted and new hardware, and a hippie bought it and painted it purple and green with flowers and marijuana plant stuff on it and changed the hardware and changed the glass and made it black or painted the glass, I said, that could be for sale at a garage sale 35 years from now. And you would walk up and look at it and see that imperfection and go, I made that. And I said, so was that imperfection the imperfection, or was that the only perfection? Right? Was that the only thing? So the point is, when the Father looks at you and sees you, he knew you before. You were with him before. So you come and he says, hey, don't you remember me? And he goes, I never knew you, because you don't have any of his attributes. None of them. They're gone. There are none of those perfect imperfections. There's none of his work. His work is completely vanished. You have sacrificed everything in your soul. You have sacrificed every bit of good for everything that is in this world. And it is our obligation to deny this enemy's world. The Father isn't going to have you standing next to him filled with all that crap. right? If you want to stand next to him, so look at this as, like I've said, this is a refinement place. If you want to know what it is, it's like he's going to use the enemy's works on his behalf, because the Father doesn't waste anything. Not even the enemy's works. That's the entire story of Job. Satan saying, hey, God says, hey, Satan, where have you been? And he said, oh, I've just been lounging around, essentially, right? That's in the Hebrew. When you read it in the Hebrew, it's amazing. It says, and Satan was among them. But in the Hebrew, it's almost like he was hanging out with them, right? This is a comfortable relationship there. And he says, have you checked out my loyal servant Job? Satan is the refiner. This is his gig. This is his job. This is his punishment. Hey, if you're going to fall and I'm going to use you, my children will be refined through that. And so they've got to deny you.
Does he know he's working for us?
No. This is where you read into the Gnostic text, where you hear about the blind demiurge.
Yes.
He's so blinded by his own needs and wants that he doesn't even know when he's helping you. And a perfect example of that are movies. That you'll have incredible amounts of truths that are written into these movies, like The Matrix, like The Book of Eli, like tons of movies. I mean, Monsters, Inc. I can find almost any movie. It is impossible for the creative mind, the divine spirit in us, to abandon who we are. It comes out in us. We take credit as though we wrote this. It's kind of like in my copyright battle with Kazaa. My biggest argument before the court was, and that ended up being written and sent to the Supreme Court and argued there, was, who are you to say that you own the music and the copyright of who are these copyright owners of the music today? What, because they had a recording device that they can have a record right now and say, see, I wrote that melody? I said, when you have records of David, literally, and the Psalms isn't the only ones. There's many, many books of Psalms, that there were songs written and sang thousands upon thousands and thousands of melodies. So you're saying just because they lacked the ability to put it on a recording device, that they aren't the originators and the creators of that melody? Who are you? Who do you think you are? So there's so many different elements to our weakness and our arrogance is just staggering. And just that we think that we create these things. We cannot get rid of the divine in us. Only when you voluntarily do it. And that's what I'm seeing and witnessing and what I'm intended to see. I mean, I'm watching people literally abandon all of it. I mean, all of it. It's remarkable for me to see. And what's so amazing, and why I'm, we were talking earlier before we started the show, is in having my conversations with law enforcement, just amazing news, because they see it, all of them. Because first of all, I've kept all of this evidence, right? But they see it and they're like, got it. I see it. You don't have to tell me. So, and it's just, so to me, exactly when you're talking about that hand, where we began, that hand of the divine on you, I'm witnessing it. I'm witnessing the hand of the enemy, and I'm witnessing the hand of the divine counteracting it.
It's amazing stuff. It really is. And that's probably what, this whole thing we've talked about the last 5 minutes is probably what the master meant when he said, you can gain the whole world and you're going to lose your own soul. And maybe when we do gain the whole world, that's a great prescription for losing your soul. Maybe in gaining all the things and gaining all these attachments and gaining all these desires and gaining all this focus on the world, maybe that's the prescription on how to lose your soul. Maybe it said, hey, you want to lose your soul? Gain the whole world. And maybe the opposite is true. Lose the things of the world. Let the things of the world not have any, go back to the old Christian song, the things of the world will grow strangely dim. Maybe that's the way to save your soul or your spirit or whatever you call it.
That's exactly it. But see, that is the gospel, Jeff. That is the gospel. It's that simple. It isn't about going up and saying some enchantment on a pulpit. It isn't about speaking something. When it says say it in scripture, it's when you say it, you're manifesting it. You're making it real. Just saying it isn't enough, right? You have to actually know it. You have to be it. You have to live it.
Yeah. There's a reason he said the people that have left houses for him and that have left lands for him and have left gold for him, that they're going to find their reward.
Yeah. And this is also the same reason why he said, in the same scripture that you're talking about, that you forfeit your soul, right? Gain the whole world and forfeit your soul. And also talking about if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It's better to lose that member than it is to lose your soul.
Right.
But understand that gaining the whole world, from for what I've seen, gaining the whole world means that your world became something other than the Father. It doesn't have to mean gaining riches. It means whatever you're obsessed with. Because as I've articulated in the videos, we're talking an occupation of every day, the obsession with something that becomes that. It doesn't matter what it is. It will become evil in you. It will become evil.
Absolutely. And what did I just have in my mind? It ran off. Doggone it. That was something good. But yeah, it's when the master said that it's almost impossible for a rich man to enter into the kingdom, is that really what he meant?
Yes. And so he doesn't say almost impossible. He said it's more difficult, right? And then they say, well, how can anybody survive? Like, how can anybody be saved? And he says, with God, all things are possible.
Right.
So that what it is the abandonment of. So it's and here's the other thing, Jeff. Let's focus on one thing that, and this drives people crazy when I say it. I go, he came to preach the good news to the poor.
Right.
Why is it that the good news doesn't get preached to the rich? Just that question alone instantly causes fury at me. And then I say, and they go, well,
why doesn't it say he came to preach the good news to the rich?
Because the rich, here's the funny thing. The rich are either won't hear the good news, right? And if they do hear it, it won't be good news to them. Right? So why would he preach it to the rich? It's the same statement that he says that I came for the sick, not the well. He wasn't saying that the Pharisees were well. He was just saying that they think they're well.
Derek, he did preach it to the rich one time. Remember the rich young ruler, who I think was Saul of Tarsus, by the way? The master's preaching to him, and he says, "You're not far from the kingdom of heaven. You only lack one thing. Sell everything you have, give it to the poor. Come follow me." And the next verse says, "And he went away." If you go to the original Greek, he went away pissed off.
Yes, he was pissed because he couldn't give it up.
There's a reason why the gospel isn't preached to the rich. And I got nothing against rich people. I hope that a rich person is going to help me out one of these days and we can spread more of this word around the world. But the reason he doesn't want to preach it to rich people is because rich people, by and large, aren't going to receive it. And when they do, they receive a greater condemnation on themselves than they would have if he hadn't preached it to them.
Yes. So there's multiple truths always, Jeff.
The master, Coach Ferratu. That's what I said. The master. Did you hear it clearly?
So the thing is that there are multiple truths to every statement that he made. That's the genius of the statements. So the poor aren't just poor financially, because you can have money and still be poor.
Absolutely.
Right. So in fact, every wealthy person I know is so poor, I can't even express how poor they are.
Ooh, that's so true.
I don't know one wealthy, and I know a lot of billionaires. I don't know one of them that is truly happy. Not one.
Not one, Derek, is truly happy.
Not one.
Interesting.
And even then, and even worse, the ones that are, the funny thing is that the billionaires that I know, they seem to know that something is really busted because they shouldn't have what they have. It now becomes apparent to them. And the amazing thing is that once you get to that level, the enemy will never let you go. And I articulate this in the very first collaboration between Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, when they both combined their entire wealth, all of it. Both of them were worth $40 billion at the time. I was at Microsoft. And Bill didn't like me. So they were worth $40 billion at the time, each one of them. And they both contributed it to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which we know a little bit more about what that foundation's agenda is, since they judge their success on how many people die. It's remarkable. But they both contributed it to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in solving these sicknesses. Now, both of them within a year were worth $40 billion again. So the point is that he will never let you get away from that. That you're attached to it. They have sold their soul. I just say, I go, this is so easy, folks. This is not a complicated thing. When you read Revelation, you read the mark of the image of the beast, right? What that is. It's clearly money. This is just an image. It's the tool. It is the tool because it forces people to abandon true value for a lie. That becomes part of you. It runs the entire systems of the world. The United States dollar being literally 666. I mean, it doesn't get any more in your face than that. United States dollar, 6 letters, $6. 6 letters. When it becomes United Nation dollar, it'll still be 666. It's the same thing. You've got the all-seeing eye on there. The thing's filled with pagan and satanic stuff. It's the image of the beast. It also bears the image of man and animal. I mean, what more do you need?
And in the original Greek, the mark of the beast is literally translated the imprint on a coin. It's money.
It is money, people. Money. Yes, and I'm like,
but that's not what they said in the movie, and they're going to imprint it on you. No, you dummies. It's money. It's clear. It's plain.
Yeah, and Jeff, and here's the remarkable thing. Okay, it says that it will be written on your hand and your forehead if you take the mark, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, here it is. It's written on your hand because it's all you ask for, and it's written on your forehead because it's all you think about. Real simple. This is not rocket science, people. You want to make things more complicated. It's kind of like my Jordan Peterson video the other day. I've watched a bunch of Jordan Peterson's videos. He's a genius, but he is just this far away from being absolutely dead on right. He will never be correct in his assessment. He's correct on the surface level. He can identify the problem in politics, but he can't tell you where the problem yields from because he's not thinking on the internal level, in the mind level. He's and crazy enough as this is, he's a clinical psychologist.
Amazing.
And
so
as that,
every rich person is bad, and that rich people can't be good, and they can't help, and they can't be saved.
No, not saying that at all. You can look at, for instance, Oprah Winfrey saying, okay, people go, oh, but Oprah Winfrey did good with her money. No, she didn't. She built a school in Africa, they say. She built a school in Africa and put her name on it. Steven Spielberg gives his money to build a building and puts his name on it. That's entirely self-serving, right? Remember that what was actually remembered, what was remembered in the scripture about what somebody gives when Christ sees the guy that comes and gives his 10% and it's a big wad, and that one lady comes in, she only has a penny and throws it in. And he said, she's given more than all of you. Because in her absence of it, she gave the abundance of her wealth.
Yeah.
Right. So all of these are parables about what we do with our soul. And that goes to the thing that I wanted to discuss with you about the fig tree.
Absolutely. And can we just, before we close this out, if somebody, to the billionaires that are listening, to the multimillionaires that are listening, what would your advice be to them as far as getting on a proper spiritual path? What brings us down spiritually is what we have. So this is where I always try to say to somebody when they ask a question, I go, there is never going to be a short answer because we have been trained to hear things, and we're the Burger King generation. We want the burger in 5 minutes or less, and we want it our way. Have it your way. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not going to get it your way, and it's not coming in 5 minutes or less. So it is precept upon precept, a little here, a little there. So with that said, is that how we have accepted the things that have tainted us, how we have forgotten true value. So to somebody that has this abundance of wealth, the reality of this is sin. What sin is debt. Now, what is debt? Right? Christ paid for our debt is the parable of this.
Right.
The allegory of that. Now, he paid for it because he demonstrated what the result of it is and who the God of this world is. He had a few objectives. He completed them perfectly. So, but debt, sin, if I always, and many people that have already watched this have probably heard me say this, and it's always worth hearing again. The tree outside, if you walk outside and you look at a tree, look around it, you'll see the shrubs around the tree. that tree has no sin. That tree, even though it's bigger than the shrubs, it doesn't use its massive root system to take all of the nutrients out and starve out the shrubs and the trees next to it because it can. It doesn't. It allows its roots to grow and live harmoniously with everything else, even though they're different than him.
Wow.
Right? So that is the absence of sin. Now, when you think about that, if you get down to the little detail of it, so if that's what it is, then that tree, if that tree were to have sin, it would be taking something that it doesn't need. Right? So sin, what wears on us is having something that we don't need. If somebody else needs it, that's why you give it. You don't lend it. You don't charge interest on it. If you can give it, then you didn't need it. You didn't need it. And that's the sacrifice of that. I don't need that. You do. Right? The tree does that. I don't need those nutrients, but you do, so I'm not taking them. It's very simple. It takes, not even the squirrel that stores up stuff, right, doesn't take more than he needs for the winter.
Wow. So that's what he's talking about when he talks about heaping up for yourself riches in the last days. Riches
in this world that mean nothing, right? So in other words, all of this false value, all of these lies begins to wear it. When the truth is revealed. Think about the guy that walks around in arrogance, thinks he has everything. He's got 2 Gulfstream 5s. He's got a Gulfstream 5 and he's really proud of his Gulfstream, of his 5 Plus or what, a 5S or whatever he gets, and or the gold sinks that he had, whatever, right? Or he got a BBJ. That guy, when the truth becomes revealed, the unveiling, the apocalypse, when the reality of his riches is known, that guy he'll die of shock, because the reliance on who he is and what he is all false. When that falseness is wiped out, he becomes nothing instantly. And that's what happens in death when you realize you're nothing instantly, right? So with that said, the person that is wealthy right now, the person that has a bunch of money, the last thing you want is any of that dragging you down. And you think, well, it's not dragging me down. It is. I promise you, it's impossible for it not to, because of the way that the world works. So it is tearing you down because when the truth is revealed, that very second that you're sitting there going, oh, it's not hurting me, it's not tearing me down. When the truth is revealed, you're going to realize and you'll see when you know everything, because at one point you will know all things. Everything will be revealed. And you're going to see that people died of starvation while you sat and held on to that and said, I'm good.
And the master said, they sit there and they say, I am rich, I am increased with goods, I don't have need of anything. And that is the thing that ruins the rich person, is to think that they don't have need of anything and that their security becomes in the things that they have.
Yeah, and that's Revelation. That is the judgment. That's spoken of those people at this first portion of the plagues, right? One of the plagues is exactly that. That is a plague. That I'm rich, I don't need anything. Oh, really? Watch this, right? So here's how much you actually need. And so this is where, and it's not about learning how to survive on your own and growing a garden. All of that will be helpful, right? Knowing, being a botanist, knowing what you're doing with seeds, knowing what you're doing with plants, knowing what trees are, knowing these things is definitely valuable. If people say, well, what else can I watch? I go, why don't you learn about plants? Why don't you learn about growing stuff?
Learn about what you should eat and what you can eat and what you can't eat.
Go grab yourself a shaman's dictionary about how to live out in the middle of nowhere, right? All the foods. You're going to find out that piece of bark is far more valuable than that steak that you're going to cook tomorrow. That little piece of bark has more nutrients. That little tiny flower, one little tiny flower, literally, you'll get used to it. Your body will adapt, right? Where you think that you're hungry today because your stomach's not full, but your body will be refreshed because there's so many nutrients in these certain things that you're completely unaware of. So yeah, learn those things. You want to learn how to live, and by the way, learning how to appreciate it. So this is where the indigenous people teach us something. Like, it's even though they killed animals, right? The amount of respect that they had for the buffalo, because they knew that the buffalo moved in a migrational pattern and that they would come through. and the indigenous people would focus on them so greatly that they would observe the pack. They would observe the entire lot of them, and they would only go after the slow and the weak, right? They would not go for the head of the herd. They would go for the slow and the weak. And then they would sit there and they would honor that, and they would do everything in front of the rest of the buffalo to show that they use everything. There is no waste. So the buffalo serves them, and they serve the buffalo by thinning out their herd, taking the weak and the slow. That there's a relationship there. They share these things. There's a requirement between these things. The way that the man's mind works today is this me, my. We focus on these things. It makes you demonic. It makes you demonic. It's just startling to watch that it's what allows. So I would say to somebody rich today, and I have, like I said, and I say these things to my wealthy friends all the time. They don't like hearing it, just like you didn't hear what I said the other day. You're like, I'm not feeling so hot right now. Right? So
I heard it. I just didn't want to listen.
Yes, I know.
But I did.
But the reality of it is they should start, and the reward that they receive, right? And the most important part is give with your right hand, and don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, because you don't even want to taint yourself. Because when you self-exalt, when you want to go, hey, I gave them, that's putting your name on the building. That removes the reward. That's why it says, give in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Do not broadcast this. Do not know. Do not talk about this. That when you do that, the repair that this does within your consciousness, within your very soul, will be so rewarding. And the mere fact that you don't, the humility without broadcasting it, becomes such a powerful thing for you, because then you are confident in yourself. You no longer need internal confidence. You no longer need somebody to tell you you're wonderful. You've got the Father that says, that's it. That's it. That's how you do it. Everything within scriptures, all of this, everything that the Master said was social, political, and spiritual. Everything. That's those meanings. The different meanings. You'll find the social aspect of what he said. You'll find the political aspect of what he said, and you'll find the spiritual aspect of what he said.
Absolutely. You're willing to look.
In every single statement. So you can identify these things.
And to the fig tree.
To the fig tree. So I'm going to read this. So in Mark 11:12-25, Jesus curses a fig tree and clears the temple courts. Now, first I want to tell you that when I first read this, for the longest time, and this is where sometimes, even no matter how much I've been shown, certain things are still held. It's almost as if that it has to come to pass, and then it's revealed to me. That's what that is. So, with that said, let me read this. It says, Jesus curses the fig tree and clears the temple. Because when I first read this, I thought, what an ass. Like, I was like, what a jerk. And
that lost his temper, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought, what a jerk. I mean, what a prima donna he is, walking around demanding that this thing has fruit out of season. I was like,
and it wasn't even the right.
I mean, I was like, what? It has leaves. What, man? Wow, it must really be hard to follow this guy. Like, thinking. And it says the next day they were leaving Bethany. Jesus was hungry, seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf. He went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for the figs.
And then he knew it wasn't season.
Yeah. Then he said to the tree, may no one ever eat fruit from you again. And his disciples heard him say it. Now, keep in mind, right after that, he goes in and turns over the tables in the temple. Okay, so these two kind of go hand in hand. But let's just focus on the fig tree, and we'll start with this. He sees the fig tree in the distance. Okay, so because this is the type of parable that I would tell you probably didn't exist. It didn't happen this way. It wasn't a tree. It was a man. And
it looks so good from afar, so good that even Jesus had to go take a closer look.
Yeah. So you see a man wearing soft clothing, right? Those that wear soft clothing live in mansions. Sees a man wearing soft clothing. And now here's the crazy part. I'm gonna tell you some things that might just shatter your head a little bit here. And he went to find if it had any fruit. So he went and engaged this man, right? To demonstrate something. This man is seen as religious. This man is seen as knowing the Father. This man, this person, these people that you see and that you know, they're seen as Christians. They're seen as having fruit. Because let's remember, you will know them by their fruit.
And Jesus also said that you can see men as trees walking.
Okay, so there's no accident about this. When he reached it, he found nothing. He had a conversation. And he was like, this tree is dead. And not only that, may nobody ever get fruit from you, because what fruit he would have would be rancid. So he cursed this tree. And this became startling to me, that, and he said, may no one ever eat from your fruit again. Right? So let nobody hear your words again. This is precisely what he came to accomplish. It's exactly what he said, for I came to cast fire in the earth and would that it were already kindled. Right? I came to cast fire here. I came to burn this place up, and gosh dang it, it's not even kindled yet. I've got to do that.
Do you think he asked the guy for some money?
No, I think he asked him for some wisdom.
Gotcha.
Right? He asked him.
Probably offered him money.
And he probably offered him money. Get away from me, you wretch. Right? What I mean by this is yet another example of hold fast to what you have. Don't consume it. This is yet another example of everybody around you people that you think you know that think they have good fruits. They don't. It's rancid. Curse them. Go away. Leave them. Do not have them around you. Not at this time. We do not have the luxury, folks. We do not have the luxury of messing around with this anymore. I promise you this. We do not have that luxury of going, oh, well, maybe they'll be fine. No. You get away. That's the shake off the dust from your boots. Go. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to hate them. You can just pray from them, but do not let their fruits impact you. They're cursed. May they never speak to anybody again of what they know, because it's rancid fruit, and we do not have the luxury. That's exactly what he's saying here. And that's why then he went into the temple, because this was most likely a Pharisee. This was most likely.
Can I tell you what he was really saying? What he was really saying? He was really saying this. Watch. Get off my cloud.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Very nice. Get off my cloud.
That's the Add Unindoctrinate story you can get to on jeffreydarty.com.
Get off my cloud. Yeah, that's a great line.
How do you know when to tell somebody to get off your cloud?
You know, when they begin violating yours, like when it starts to have an impact on you, right? When your spirit feels that, when they're in violation. I'll give you an example of somebody coming up. Somebody walks up to you and goes, I had such an awful day. My husband is such an ass, and he's done this and blah, 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 blah. And it's gossip. Get off my cloud. Why would you bring your misery to me? Right? Yeah. You didn't come ask me for advice. You came, and you know what, Jeff, this goes back to the thing that I talked to you about the puppy. Remember?
Yes.
You scold the puppy. That puppy runs underneath somebody else's legs. Pet me, pet me. Misery loves company. They want somebody to join their misery. They'll spread misery. Look, the only two things. This is the wonderful thing. If I have $1, Jeff, this shows you a lie in value. Practice this in everything in your life. If I have $1 and I give it to you, I no longer have the $1. Right?
Right.
So it doesn't multiply. If I have love and I give it to you, you now have love, I have love, and between those two components of love, we now have an overarching love, so it is multiplied by 3.
It is.
Okay? Hate, misery, same thing. You have misery, you go share it with someone else, now they're miserable. What kind of crap is that? Why would you ever want to do that to anybody? And why would you ever accept anybody doing it? With all due respect, you say? Get off my cloud.
Yep. Derek, you have love.
Yes.
You give me love. And guess what happens when you have love and you give me love?
Infinite.
It's a heart. Now we have extra love.
And it's infinite, right?
It's infinite.
It's the sign of infinity. Because the perpetual motion, look, we are motion and rest, right?
Yep.
That's who we are. We are motion and rest, motion and rest.
You didn't really think you were going to get through a show with Derek and I without a whiteboard to make an appearance, did you?
I got a whiteboard here somewhere.
So is that the whole thing of the fig tree?
It is that the fig tree
powerful.
that the fig tree is man. It's not a tree. It's not because it's ridiculously simple as that sounds, right? Jeff, this is where when people become impatient, it's like you'll get what you're supposed to have. You will never be given more than you can handle. And you'll never be given what you're not supposed to have until you have it. When people demand answers, don't. This is what rest. What did you not understand? That I will give you rest, right? This is all of these things. This is the crazy part about it, is that everything that was spoken by the master isn't his, it's yours.
Yeah.
This is the problem with the world, that I can walk in to a 50,000 member church and if I would have to interview every single person to find one person that got this.
And you probably wouldn't find one.
In many cases, no. But I can tell you that with the magnetosphere, with the things that are going on, there are people that are quietly waking up. So let me tell you a story. There was a lady that did contact. I got a
question for you.
Yeah. There's a lady that contacted me. She was 90 years old. She said, I just wanted to tell you that I've been in church. My father was a pastor. My husband was a pastor. My 2 sons are pastor. And I've sat in church and I've been on the board of elders. I have participated in church, and never did I speak the truth that I knew inside. And she said, and I've waited my entire life to hear someone else say it. And she said, and you've said it, and I feel I can die now. I was like, I couldn't believe that. So there are people like her that know this and don't speak it.
There are.
And they go to church every single Sunday because they don't have another outlet. But they know these truths. They know them because, look, you can't avoid it. As I say them, I go, I can say Christ's words right back to you. And somehow they're different because you tell me I'm a liar. And it's astonishing. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm saying Christ's words and somehow I'm lying? Well, you say that he's a liar then.
That's so true.
It's just remarkable for me to watch. And so this is what's supposed to give us comfort. He said this would happen. He said every single bit of this would happen, that as you go through these, I'm telling you, if I need the instruction booklet about what's going to happen tomorrow, I just read and go, well, what else did he go through? Right? Yeah, I see it. Oh, there it is. Oh, well, hey, I can expect that from that person. Who's Judas today?
Yeah.
Who's Peter? Right?
Interesting. Back in the day when I first started preaching, I used to do a lot of used to call it the Jeff Daugherty Sidewalk Crusade. We did a lot of street preaching. And I had a crazy idea come up in my mind. I just want to bounce it off of you and give me an honest opinion of what you think. What if you went out to like the sidewalk in front of some of these great big mega churches, and when they were letting out a church, you went out there and started speaking some of these messages that we speak to these people that are coming out of church? What do you think would happen, and would it be worth the time to do it?
Would it be worth the time to do it? I would say that there is a time to do that, and that's fulfillment of Scripture, because as I said, it's an instruction booklet. You're told to go do that, because if you're supposed to be like Christ, well, then you better go do that. So there is a time for that. And what would happen? Well, read about it. they'd probably take him to the top of the temple of that church and try to throw his ass off, right?
That's why I said be on the sidewalk, because that's public property and you can't get arrested for that.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jeff, we'll do this. We'll carry a video camera. I'll do the talking. You hold the camera, right? and just put a little a rope around my waist, so when they try to take me, you can just yank me back. Because
I'll make you a deal. I'll do it with you if you hold the camera sometimes too, and I'll hold the camera.
Dude, let me tell you something. I will sit back and just smile all day long, man. I'll be happy to hold the camera. I quite honestly think that would be, first of all, now would that be good YouTube or what?
That would be an incredible YouTube. I'd love to do that. We have to do that somehow. We have to make that happen.
Let's do that.
That would be fabulous.
You know, I've already, I've walked into churches here in the local town, and and I'll ask them. I go, I just have some questions about Jesus, right? and they're like, oh, okay. They want to answer the questions, and I said, so, and I'll usually start off with, so, it says that, it says a whole lot of stuff about Jesus and who he was and who he is and what Christ is. And I said, but if Jesus died on the cross for my sins, and that means I'm forgiven, why did he tell me to pick up my cross? I have to do it again? I thought he did it for me. And they immediately are deer in headlights. And they will talk themselves into circles. And I go, so who is God? Oh, well, he's the creator of all these things, and he does this, and he's creator of you and all of that. I go, really? So then how did Satan offer all of this to Christ when he was tempted? And then they look at me again, and I go, but forget about that question for a second. Bigger question. Satan calls himself God, exalted himself, calls himself God, placed himself on the throne. So can you show me in the Bible, because I've been looking, can you show me, direct me in the Bible as where Satan conducted his works while he called himself God? Where is that? And they'll go, well, it's not really there. And I go, okay, well, then let's go the opposite direction. Where in the Bible is Satan's evil works? We're told he's evil. We're told he's a liar. We're told he's a murderer. Where are those works?
Because I can show you places where God did those things.
Yeah, I'll show you places where God did that everywhere.
Everywhere.
Right? Kill everything. Kill every creepy crawly thing because man pissed me off, right?
How many times did he tell people, go into this land, kill the men, kill the women with child, kill the babies, kill the animals, and then burn the place?
Endless.
But remember, God is love.
Yeah, God is love. That's the word, right? In the beginning was the word. The word is love, right? Because if God is love, then that is the word.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, it's remarkable how people could deviate from that. And as I've said on the, I say smart people. Oh yeah. But see, this is the whole thing. This is where I say, Jeff, it has nothing to do with smart people. This is programming. They've been programmed. It's devastating to me to see. And I see the programming because they'll repeat. Look, when you've done enough coding and you know the results, this code results in this button gets pushed, this comes out. I can go to those pastors, those churches. And you know what? We can do this on camera when we do this. I'll tell you exactly what they'll say in response to what I say.
Okay.
Verbatim. They might say it with a different accent. One will go, well, you see, you don't have to love God. You don't have to, they'll tell you, it'll just be a different accent, but the same words.
Same words.
It's programming. Otherwise, how can they be so comfortable? How can they be so comfortable being so canned and generic, having no original thought, adhering to the doctrines and the teachings of man, yet their heart is far from him, just as Scripture says?
It's just amazing that these people, and yet smart people, and they just can't see it. And they're what it is, it's spiritual Stockholm syndrome.
It is.
We have been under captivity for so long that not only have they joined with their captors, but they will literally fight against to the death anyone that comes to set them free.
Yes, they will. And they sympathize with their captors, which actually, the crazy part about that, though, Jeff, is this is where our divinity is used against us, because that is actually an attribute of the divinity. That if you truly do love the Father, know the Father, you also have to have compassion for the enemy. You have to have compassion for him. You've got to feel sorry for this. I mean, what kind of miserable existence? Would you want that job? Would you want that position? What kind of horrifying thing is that? It's remarkable to me that, and that's actually something that I was compelled that I had to learn. Oh, very quickly, I want to go back when I told you that I might blow your mind with something with the fig tree. You said, was that all with the fig tree? So I just want to catch up on something like that. I would say that the person that Jesus walked up to here, or who he was speaking of, was John the Baptist.
That tree, the fig tree, was John the Baptist?
That's what I believe.
Really?
He must decrease, he must increase. Let no fruit be from you. That it matches the fig tree. That he didn't have the fruits that he had. Just because he had the job of announcing him didn't mean that he was preaching good truths. He was very much a part of the Essenes, right? So they were strict, far more strict than your traditional Pharisees and Jews in Jerusalem at the time, right? So they were unbelievably strict, far more rigid about laws and rules that were man's laws and rules. So I would believe that John didn't have it in him. John could have known. It's kind of like my pastor, Pastor Jack, like I told you. I know he knows these truths, but he can't preach them because otherwise the entire body of his work is wiped out. And so is everybody that was saved through him.
Yep.
So is everything that he built. He can't. Neither could John. John was.
Larry Huck is?
What's that?
You know who Larry Huck is?
I know the name. I don't know him.
Larry Huck was my last pastor. He's now pastoring, I think it's called New Beginnings Church in Dallas. He's real big on TBN. And I will guarantee you that Larry and Tiz know a lot of this stuff, but they don't dare preach it.
That's exactly what I mean. So, and here's what I believe is going to happen, Jeff. I believe that there's going to be a time of what I would call reaffirmation, that when things open up, they're going to be forced to speak it.
You think
they're
so?
going to be, yeah, I believe that that these pastors are going to be forced to say, I know what that is. I know what that, and they're going to be forced to it. And and unfortunately, it's not going to work out well for them.
I've heard people say Joel Osteen knows.
You cannot be where Joel Osteen is at without selling your soul and knowing the truths. Guaranteed. It doesn't happen. Look, the Faustian bargain. You've heard of Faust, right? That's Faustian bargain.
Yeah.
I made a movie called A Murder of Crows. And A Murder of Crows is a group of crows. It's called A Murder Like a Pride of Lions or a flock of...
That was Cuba Gooding Jr. and Matthew McConaughey?
Yes. No, not Matthew McConaughey. Cuba Gooding Jr. and Tom Berenger. And
that's right. Yeah, Tom Berenger.
And Eric Stoltz.
Should have been Matthew McConaughey.
And yours truly, I'm in it. I mean, I produced the movie, and there was a scene that I did in it to save money because we were shooting. It was that was a parody.
He really didn't. That was a parody that was on Babylon B. It was a parody. Osteen did not dive off the stage to snatch a Bible from someone. It was a parody, just so you know.
Yeah. So the entire movie is about a Faustian bargain.
It was a great movie.
Yeah. So, and I produced it. So you're in it. You can see me. I'm FBI agent. I'm Agent Manning, FBI. So
nice.
And the director, the one that directed the movie, is a very good friend of mine. He's a lovely human being. His name is Rowdy Harrington. He directed Roadhouse, and he actually wrote A Murder of Crows and directed it. And he's the agent next to me, the guy that's stiff and you could tell is terrified of being on camera because that's usually directors. They never like it. But you'll see me in there with hair.
Nice. Was it your hair?
It was my hair. Yes,
Nice.
I had hair. It was just vanishing quickly.
Gotcha. So did we? It was John the Baptist was the fig tree.
I believe it was.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful.
It had leaves. Because it just matches who he was. That's not to say, and that's why he said, may you never have any fruit again. Stop talking to people, and he did.
You did.
Right? I mean, that's what John said. I must decrease, he must increase. I'm done. And he knew it because John's like the pastors that we're talking about. They know these truths. They know them. They can't speak them. John the Baptist would have been killed by his own people immediately. He was the teacher of righteousness, right? The Essenes called Jesus the evil teacher, the evil preacher.
Well, how about that? So talk to me about prophecy, Derek.
Okay. Prophecy.
General, do you believe in modern eschatology?
I do to a degree. When somebody, some of it, I would just say to call somebody a prophet. So prophet is a foretelling, right? Prophecy is a foretelling of an event. I can tell you the United States dollar is going to collapse. That's a prophecy. The only reason why I could tell you it's going to collapse is because every fiat currency does. Right? So prophecy isn't mojo. People think prophecy is something else. There is nothing new under the sun. Right? So there's nothing new under the sun. This stuff is repeated, the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. The enemy's the same. The Father's the same. Everything is the same. It might have a different shape. It might have a different name to it. But the idea, the principles are the same. This is why prophecies would be written on things that do not change. Okay, so you would recognize them. This is why if John the Baptist was going to talk about somebody traveling across the country, he wouldn't say in a chariot, because he would know that there probably won't be chariots, so I'm not going to use that word because they might not even know what it is. He would use traveled across the country on his celestial whatever it is, right? He would use a bird that he traveled. A bird took him from here to there. The point is that he traveled.
Right.
So prophecy becomes a foretelling of the future because you know what happened in the past, and you know that there is nothing new under the sun. And in many cases, we see things as prophecy like Revelation. I don't believe that John was giving a tremendous amount of prophecy. I believe that he was being told who he was being told by. It says that, Jesus appeared and then there were angels. I truly believe personally that he actually was there, that Jesus was there, that somebody was there in Christ explaining these things to him. And more to the point, from the celestial standpoint, from the cosmological standpoint, I think he was writing to you what he was seeing and knowing what he had learned from Christ and from these teachings, and what he knew, that they knew these things happened on a clock, on an order. The book of Enoch is amazing. It says, observe the sun and that it rises and sets on my command. Observe the moon and that it comes out and gives its light and goes away on my command. Observe the stars, that they appear in their order. Observe all of these things and know when they stop obeying my commands, know that I'm at the very gates. That's where we're at today. Nothing is normal. Nothing is on order. Nothing is on time. The sun is, a few degrees off. It's changing. Our pole is changing. It's moving south. We've got stars appearing places that they shouldn't. We have the moon appearing upside down in some places, showing that there's a different light source that is reflecting off of it. We have so many anomalies that are going on right now. And these are things that work on time. They do not deviate. So when it says, when these things stop obeying my commands and my orders, no, I'm at the very gates, I kind of trust that.
Why do you think those things are happening? Why are those anomalies manifesting?
This is in an order, right? This is, when you can take bits and pieces. Again, I will say this, just like every religion. I could take the Quran and show you the truths in the Quran and show you where it's been manipulated. I could take the Bible and show you the same thing. I could take Buddhism and show you the same thing. I could take Mormonism and show you how they have truths. Look, they get They get the separation of the tribes, and they understand that there are tribes here in the United States, that these were the indigenous people. They understand who they are. These secret texts that are in the globe in the Mormon temple, right? These secret stone tablets that Joseph Smith came across. That's precisely what it was. He came across these things and was told to read them. So he has a piece of truth. The enemy has to tell you the truth, but a lie at the same time. And how to get you to prevent you from assembling these things is through the division character that he is. A separation of race, a separation of sexes, in taboos, right? Taboos. So he creates all of these taboos that you will never get Christians and Muslims to take the truths from either one of their texts and combine them and go, oh my gosh, here's a larger truth. They're never going to do that. That division is created intentionally. So the celestial bodies that we have right now come in order, and all of the ancient texts, and not just the ancient text. Let's forget about the text for a second. I mean, even though the text yield from the cuneiform tablets, right?
Yep.
Let's look at every single culture the world over, and every one of them show these celestial bodies. Every one of them have the image of the winged disc. Every one of them have the image of the caduceus, right? So the twisted pair of serpents for meta. All of them have these things. All of them have the serpent. All of them have the dragon. They just have different names for deities, and they have different names of positions, but all of them have these celestial clocks. All of them. So, you know, that we sit and marvel about the Wall of China. I went there, I went to the Forbidden City, and I lost my mind when there was a Starbucks in the Forbidden City.
Oh.
In the Forbidden City. I was like, what? It's called forbidden. Like, shouldn't that be forbidden? But the one thing that startled me walking on the Great Wall of China was understanding, number one, it wasn't built by people. It was built by far more technologically advanced people when you see it. But more importantly than that, we're going to build another one. Like this is the whole thing, talking about building this wall to keep people out. That wall was built to keep people in, right? These are different places. You don't build that wall as a protection mechanism. That was there to, as the excuse. I'm sure they told them this is to protect against our enemies. And then it just became a slave on the inside, a smaller slave system. But if you look at the, I would say if I directed people to some of these things, I would direct people to, even though I don't agree with all of Zechariah Sitchin's translations of the ancient cuneiform, but what he does do is he gives you a startling look at where it's injected into Scripture. He's very good at that. He also gives you he was. You know, I met him one time when I was he was in Congress. I was testifying before Senate Judiciary Committee, and he came up and introduced himself to me. And the funny thing is that I remember it because I got his card and it was in my contacts. And it wasn't until after I was reading, and I was like, and I looked at my contacts, I was like, oh, and I have 9,000 contacts in my contact database that I've maintained all these years. And I saw his name in there, and I had notes of when I met him. I don't really remember meeting him. I remember his look. He looked like a heavier set Colonel Sanders, right?
Yeah, he looked exactly like that.
Yeah.
Maybe there's too much finger licking good going on. I don't know.
Yeah, but let me I'm going to erase something here. I'm going to do a little whiteboard for you.
It's whiteboard time.
It's whiteboard time. Okay, can you see that? Or you can see this. What you got? Whiteboard envy, do you? So, so just so you understand of where we're at, is as I've said, I don't know whether you've ever seen the planet being busted in half, right? In Zechariah Sitchin's books, but he has wonderful. I watch
Star Trek. I see that all the time.
Okay. So here we have the sun, and we have planets. Okay, sorry. Planets. Not all of these move in this. Some move in retrograde. I'm just giving you. This is their orbit.
Right.
One elliptic. Okay. So here we are, third rock from the sun. We're Earth. In between Mars and Jupiter, here we have the asteroid belt.
Right.
Okay. The asteroid belt is what used to be part of Earth when Earth was hit. and moved from here to here, which is why we have a shorter lifespan of 120 years and not 900 years like Adam and Noah and all of them. So we were moved. This impact, we were changed. The remnants of this, that's why they're now saying that this is now confirmed as part of the planet. Now, This took place because there is this planetary system, which, by the way, looks like, if you looked at it, you would have a larger component in the middle, and you have other stars, some of them hot stars, plasma stars, like our sun, but small. So you have this planetary body. This is an entire system, and it orbits in an elliptic like this. So we have 1 year around the sun here. This system travels on 3,600 years elliptic.
So you're talking about Sitchin's Planet X or Nibiru?
Yes. So this is now I'm going to show you this so you understand that planet coming through, understand that the name, the variations of it is the planet of the cross, the planet of the crossing. Number one, its system looks like a cross.
Is it a planet, Derek, or a system?
It's a system. I call it it's a planetary system. There are multiple planets with it. The ancients knew this. The Hopi know this. The Lakota know this. It's all spoken of in their prophecies. The blue and red Kachina, it's all there, right? You can see these things on the FAA weather cams being hidden. They're there. And these are really large planetary bodies. We are the tiniest little thing. We are just itty bitty. So with this said, this is called the planet of the crossing because all of the planets move and it comes in, and it's called an invader in these ancient texts.
Yeah.
It invades this system. And so when this comes through, there are other things that are happening in our Milky Way, which is the dragon, the black holes. There's lots of stuff. So this is a system. This is the matrix, so to speak. So now this planetary body that looks like this cross up here, imagine that here you have a solid planet, and here you have some stars that are plasma stars, so energy. Now, this planetary body right now is missing one. It's missing its top, creating a T look. And when this system shows up, it shows up as this disk that has these wings.
Ah.
The reason why it looks like it has wings is because this has come through this system and destroyed planets. And when it hits and collides, its gravitational net, as spoken of in these ancient texts, has such a draw and such a pull that when it goes through, even if it doesn't collide with you, it will flip planets on its head, pole shifts. It will eviscerate. If these stars come too close, it will burn them like a match, light up their atmosphere like a match, hence Mars and the plasma strike. That this thing is an invader and it causes havoc like you cannot believe. Now, as it said, as we've seen evidence that in certain sunrises, you'll see the evidence that there are two suns. There's a smaller sun with our sun, hence these suns with this planetary system.
And those just aren't lens flares.
Yes, no, they are not lens flares. You can see them with the naked eye.
I like the eraser, Derek.
Yeah, this is a nice eraser, huh? So check this out. Now, if people want to know how the planet of where the moon comes from, right? What that moon up there is. First of all, I believe it's a device. The ancients called it sin. And the ancient texts show that Marduk lives in it. And Marduk being the son of Satan, essentially. So not a very good dude. And the founder of Babylon. Okay, so Marduk could be living in there. That's where this phrase of man in the moon comes from.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes,
right?
I like that.
So here you have this. Here we had Earth that was big. According to scripture, it had 3 rivers and it had seas. It didn't have oceans. Now the description was it was the deep blue, and then the land appears on top of it. So what we have here is everything that you see, with the exception of these lines, is land on top of water. And this would be a rotation of the water that fed the top of the soil. There, I would put, according to the scriptures, when I read these ancient texts, I would say that Earth actually didn't have a blue sky at the time.
What color do you think it was?
It would be the same. You would still have light, but it would be a black sky. You would still be able to see the stars. The only reason you're seeing a blue sky is because the sunlight is shining through the water, creating the blue imagery, which blocks the stars and the darkness of space during the day.
Interesting.
Okay, so imagine.
I have these every now and then. I'll have a dream of a place with a purple sky.
Well, it might very well look that way. If you also have the sun going up into it, it might have a purple sky. I could see that possibly taking place. But imagine this for a second, that all of the ancients were so well versed in the astrological systems, in all of the stars, their position, where they were, when they show up, right? They didn't have telescopes, at least as far as we know. But the fact of the matter is they all knew them. A shepherd that had sheep knew the stars better than our greatest astronomers today.
Absolutely.
So they lived by those things. They didn't sit out all night and observe them. They observed them because they were there all the time. They knew where
they could see them during the day.
Yes, you could see them during the day. And I'm going to show you how this happened. So here you have Earth. This planetary system came around according to these scriptures. This wasn't called Earth at the time. It was called Tiamat.
Right.
Tiamat, or in some cases, Ki, meaning earth. Ki, which is where you have the name Enki, Lord of Earth. En meaning Lord, Ki, earth. So you have this body, which is all land. This gets impacted by one of these small suns.
Okay.
So it gets impacted. It turns this into, and remember, this is sitting on top of water.
Right.
This gets turned into a half-broken shell. And water here. Right? So I'll make the water blue. So now we have a half-broken Earth. The water that got hit that wasn't saved in this went out and became Halley's Comet and the other comets, which are all big balls of ice. And guess what? They happen to have the same ecliptic as Nibiru's system.
That's interesting.
It's not as long, but it would show that the net pull pulled them into its ecliptic. So it has the same oblong ecliptic that I showed earlier. All of them do, right? So with that, now we have the movement, the motion of space, and that pulls and spins like a dryer, okay? So you put your clothes in the dryer, they sit flat, you spin that, those clothes will then go around. Now with that, you have this water in the middle, and the action of the spinning of this cracks the land on top of the water and pulls it around the water, giving you now a much smaller Earth with those broken pieces, which we've seen, smaller Earth. Right? So now you have a smaller Earth, which would now explain why we have bones of people that were 12 to 36 feet tall with 7.5 and 9.5 foot femur bones that were on this planet now, because let's not forget, we are also reptilian in the brain and of our mind. Absolutely. People go, right? Satan is called being covered in diamonds. I don't know whether you've ever taken a magnifying glass and look at your skin, but you're covered in diamonds.
Yes, you are. Right?
And you also shed.
Your skin is reptilian. Your hair is reptilian. Your teeth are reptilian. Your nails are reptilian.
You're reptile people. Okay? Yeah. So make no mistake about this. The only thing that gives you a heart, the only thing that gives you love is divinity, because a true reptile is what people become when they sacrifice their soul. A reptile isn't like a bear or a cougar or anything like that. A reptile will watch its young be eaten by prey with an unblinking eye. They won't attempt to protect them at all. They've got no heart. None. So with this, you now have this. But guess what? What impacted the Earth? What I told you is, remember I said that this body looked like this?
Right.
And it's missing this top one. That top sun impacted Earth. That's still at our core, sitting at our core, which is why the Earth has a hot core. That is precisely why things are screwed up. The water vapor that came as a result of this went into our atmosphere, locked by the atmosphere, was locked in, which is why we now have a perpetual cycle, because let's not forget that the waters came from the great deep. The waters, even in the flood, came from the great deep. They didn't come, it said rain for 40 days and 40 nights. Okay, so impacts, things like this. That water being thrust into the air. Now we have this recycling of that.
Right.
We didn't have any vapor in the air before. It was quite different. So now check this out, Jeff. The moon is made of what we know as when you go inside the earth. Here's the earth right now.
Tell me green cheese, are you?
Inside the earth, you have a portion that's called the mantle. You've got a hot core, electrically hot, which is why we've got obelisks and why this earth has a magnetic foundation around it. You have this mantle around here. The moon is made of this mantle. It's the same material. So with that said, if you take a drop of water, okay, you see that?
Yep.
A drop of water, and I have a puddle, and that drop of water goes into that puddle. That drop of water will go inside that puddle, and it will eject out a droplet going up. It looks like the water is dancing on top of the water, right? It looks like they bounce off the water. That's not a bounce.
In size?
They're exactly the same size.
Interesting.
Okay? So they have to, because what's happening...
Equal amount of what it goes into.
Equal amount. So the drop that goes in displaces the water that is the exact equal amount size out. That is exactly what the moon is. The moon is evidence that we were impacted, and that moon is a drop of molten core from the inside of the earth. So that's why the moon is continuously moving, even to this day, moving away from the earth. It's still moving away. That's exactly why also the moon doesn't rotate the same way as the earth. It spins, but it spins at us. Okay, just like a drop of water when it comes out goes in spiral. We talked about, you and Jay talked about that. Everything's a spiral, right?
Yeah, Robert Stanley.
Yes, so it's spiraling. So that's why you never see the dark side of the moon. It doesn't matter, because the dark side of the moon is never facing our direction where the light of the sun can reflect off of it. You're only seeing the one side. You see the same face all the time. And
so
if
is the moon hollow?
What's that?
Is the moon hollow?
Everything would be. Because see, if it's a lump, what happens is, just like I said, here you have a dryer, right? You put your clothes down at the bottom. You spin that. Now the clothes are around the edge.
There's a spiral again.
Exactly. So this is moving around. So what is here in the center?
Nothing.
Now, so when people tell me, well, the earth is flat, or the earth is round, or the earth is this, I'm going, you're both right. Because stop this earth from spinning, and trust me, it's flat. Spin it, it's round.
That's interesting. That's an interesting take.
So I'm sure I'll get a ton from flat earthers that go, ah, but I can tell you, yes, I've read every scripture, every ancient text about flat earth, about any of that. The mere fact that, I'm just going to say this, Jeff, I'll say this to your listeners. It doesn't matter whether it's triangle, pear-shaped. I don't care whether it's a hexagon, octagon. Things are going to get bad. And the shape of it and the focus of the shape of it, people just focused on that, to me, is a psyop to distract you from what is really coming. That you're going to find, I don't know what your argument's going to be, is that somebody's going to say, basically, I'm going to decapitate you. And you're going to go, but no, the earth is flat. You can't. I mean, it's seriously, folks. There is nothing else you need to worry about except your soul. You can take these things to the bank. You can read these things that I'm showing you in scripture. You can read these things in all the ancient texts. This is not a mystery. You've only been led to see it as a mystery because they've done everything they can to hide these things.
Lyndon in the chat room asked, and this is a presumption, I guess, but why does the moon emit cold light?
Why does the moon emit cold light? Okay, so first of all, let me just explain something to you about the sun. Anybody that thinks, they say the sun is really hot. Well, I'm going to bring out the whiteboard again.
All right.
Okay.
Get my
handy dandy eraser out. So here's a thermometer, a really bad one, right? So here's a thermometer. Where does hot and cold, where do you separate hot and cold? Where are they separate? Sorry, that looks pretty phallic, doesn't it?
It does, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so let's do this one more time. Here's the thermometer. Okay?
There we go.
Sorry for the foul. I'm not trying to. I'm not attempting to. That's all I need. Be accused of drawing penises on, YouTube.
Exactly.
Because trust me, they'll do it. So where on this thermometer, where does hot, if this is cold, where does hot and cold begin and end?
That's a great question.
There is no difference.
There is no difference.
They're one element. They're just two sides of the same element.
Why does one feel warm and one feel cool?
They're different elements. They're as above, so below. Hot, cold, good, evil. These are two sides of the same element. This is why the narrow gate is neither good or evil, that you've got to be in between and ignore them both because they're both the same. Hence the Darth Vader, taking off his mask. He's the bad guy. And all of a sudden it says, I'm your father, Luke. And he's this sweet little young, sweet, old man.
Yep.
So in this world, it's the same, right? What you think is good is bad. What you think is bad is good. It's all discombobulated. It is impossible to have a binary system without having two suns. So we have what we call a hot sun, but keep this in mind. If you've ever been burned by liquid oxygen.
And I have been when I was in the Air Force.
You'll know that is really hot.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Hundreds of degrees below zero, but incredibly hot, so much it'll boil you much faster than the actual flame will.
Absolutely, it will.
Okay, so you can take minus 300 degrees centigrade, and that will burn you worse than positive 300 degrees centigrade.
Absolutely.
Okay, so know this, is that you have space. The sun is in space. There is a vacuum in space. They go, the sun is a ball of fire, right? Guess what? Balls of fire don't exist in space.
Or in vacuums.
So it isn't a ball of fire. It is a ball of electricity. Incredibly cold. So cold that at a distance, it's felt as heat.
That's going to blow some people's minds.
It is so cold. We're talking billions of degrees in temperature that burns hotter than billions of degrees of temperature of heat.
So how do I get this tan and cold?
Well, I mean, you could spray it on now, right? But check this out. So here's the important.
This is the real thing.
Here's the important part. Now, Jeff, I wear black, right?
Yep.
People tell me, why do you wear black? That's evil. And I tell them, see, your mind is so convoluted. You don't understand that this isn't black. You've been taught it to be black.
Right.
You've been taught that this is a whiteboard. I mean, hell, they call it a whiteboard, right? But the amazing part is white is what in the scriptures is referred to as light. Now, if you know what color light is, light contains all colors. And if you look at light, when you look up into the space and you see a black sky at nighttime, is there light shining? There is. There's light. Can you see the light? No, you can't see the light because light isn't visible until it's reflecting off of something. Now, when the sun's light reflects off the moon, it reflects as white, which is why we say light is white. But the reality is light isn't white. It is all colors. It contains all colors. Pick up a prism and shine some light through it, and you're going to see all the colors of it, right? So it's going to reflect all the colors. I am wearing white, which is light. This is all colors. You want to get black? Mix all the colors together. White, this whiteboard, doesn't have any pigmentation in it. It is the absence of color. Got it?
Got it.
So with that said, you can take everything that you ever thought that you knew and you could throw it out the window and understand these truths. These are things. So when you see the cold light, as you're saying, reflecting off of the moon, that's because it's actually not real light. It is a reflection of real light. in the same way that the enemy isn't the real God. He's only the inverse, the reflection of the real one, being completely evil, completely good here, reflected. So he is but an image of the real, an inverse image of the real.
Or sin, as the ancients used to say.
Exactly. So that's why the moon's called sin. Hey, the moon looks like light. It's not. It's sin. It's a lie.
That's amazing. So, Derek, you say all the time that the scriptures are encoded, that they are written by a cryptographer. Is the cryptographer the enemy, or is the cryptographer the Father?
From what I've seen, the cryptographer is the Father. And the reason why I say that is because the enemy, now don't get me wrong, there are places that I look at things and I go, but see, the enemy he is a liar in your face. He tells you the lie and the truth at the same time. It's remarkable, and the funny thing is this is actually known. When you watch The Matrix, the second one, which is, I think it's Reloaded.
Reloaded, yeah.
Matrix Reloaded. And he gets to the architect.
Right.
And the architect is talking about the oracle, which I would liken the oracle in the Matrix to the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
And that he says that we accept the program, we accept it, even though we know the truth. We only have to know the truth. We have to. And he kind of tells it as a rule, like a programming rule. Only at a mere subconscious level, barely. You just have to barely know the truth. And this is why I say that the truth is told and the lie at the same time, because in the end, when it comes time to judgment and Satan's back at the throne of God, sitting there lounging like he was with Job, and you say, but Lord, I did these things. And then he goes, well, I never knew you. You go, but wait, I didn't know. And Satan will sit back and go, I told you the truth and the lie. And every time without fail, you accepted the lie because you wanted to.
A little bit of truth is a dangerous thing.
Yep. You wanted the lie. You accepted the lie time and time again. It's like 9/11, right? They'll accept the lie time and time again. They don't want the truth. That's where you shake off the dust from your boots and move on. Their soul's done. The line's been drawn in the sand.
Amazing. It's so true. I mean, it's patent observably true. And I used to always think it was the enemy that encoded the scriptures and made it hard to understand. But then I realized that the master was saying, I don't want everybody to hear it. I don't want everybody to see it. Only those eyes to see and ears to hear. And think about it, Derek. Everybody in this 3D world has two eyes. Unless they have a problem, they can see. Everybody has two ears. They can hear. So he wasn't talking to, it wasn't 3D stuff. He wants people with eyes and ears that can see and hear beyond 3D.
Yes. And he also said, let's recall that he said, for it's been given to you to understand the secrets to the keys. Secrets and keys, man. There is nothing more, but that is literally cryptography language.
Absolutely.
Right? The secret and the keys. The secret key is cryptography. He told you point blank, it's been given to you to understand the secrets to the keys to the kingdom. To the others, they will only hear the parable. Clearly, he didn't want them to hear it, right? That he knew that it wasn't for that time. That's exactly why when addressing the crowd, he said, let the reader understand. It's like, that's confusing. You're like, wait, you're talking to a crowd. They're not reading it. But he's talking to the future. I would tell you that if you wanted to know who Christ is, he's a time traveler. And every time he shows up, they kill him. Yeah. Every time. Without fail. It says the world cannot handle him. It can't. Because Christ is going to tell you, and he's going to break these things down. He's going to set fire to your false temples. He's going to do this. This is the balancing of the matrix. This is correcting this. This is, hey, I'm going to wake you up. Do you want to escape? Only the few. I mean, look at how many people were in Zion in the matrix. Quite a few. I mean, literally, you could, if you counted the ones, I promise you, if you actually went into the party of the people in there and counted them, you'd probably come up with pretty close to 144,000.
I bet you would. I bet it would be really, really close. That's an interesting point.
I bet you it would. They're showing it to you. Again, these things aren't secrets. And again, the enemy will go, okay, hey, I'll show you that movie. And then I'll also show you the lie in the movie too. So you buy them both together.
Absolutely. Wow.
Constant.
Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff.
And by the way, hope we didn't have any audio demons in this one. I shut off
everything is completely calm and quiet, and everything's outstanding, I think.
Well, I don't have the air conditioning going, and that's why I'm boiling in here. It's monsoon season.
Yeah, I can see you're a little bit hot.
Yeah, it's like it's seriously, it's probably 105 degrees in here and wet. I think the walls are sweating right now.
Oh no. Well, it's time to get you out of here then, isn't it?
I don't know what time we got. We got 6:40. I don't know. Why don't we? I mean, if there's anybody that have some questions, we can answer some questions, and then we can.
You hit us up with some questions if you got them. Somebody asked you, what do you think about the Hat Man, or do you have any insight on Hat Man, or like a Shadow Man?
Hat Man, or do insight into Hat Man or Shadow Man?
Yeah, there's an entity that people see that is just dense black. He's just an outline. He has a big hat on. People call him Hat Man. I always call him Shadow Man. I've dealt with him for years and years and years.
I haven't encountered that, so I wouldn't have any insight into that. But I would say that thinking of some of the ancient scriptures, I wouldn't necessarily be too happy about seeing an entity wearing a hat.
Here's a surprise. Somebody in the chat room is saying that Jeff is satanic. Boy, it's been at least, I don't know, 30 minutes since I've heard that.
Wow, Jeff is satanic.
Oh, new?
That's hysterical. I probably know who it is.
Probably.
No,
okay,
I can tell you my private conversations with Jeff. I can tell you that Jeff is not satanic. Joel Osteen, yeah. Some of the pastors out there, sure. Jeff, not even close.
Do you believe the moon is being occupied by beings? And thank you for that, Derek.
Yes, I do. I believe the moon is being occupied by beings. I think that, you've got Bruce sees all. You've got people that are taking photography and taking pictures. There's clearly built establishments on there. There's architecture. There's man-made stuff. And when I say man-made, I mean, they might not be man, but they're of this image, so to speak, right? It's there. Anybody that wants to take a look, Bruce Sees All, there's a great channel. I don't know whether you've ever seen that, Jeffrey. He'll show you. What's that? I
have not. One of my weaknesses is I spend so much time studying and doing podcasts that I don't get a chance to watch much other stuff. It took, I think Sandra first told me about your channel probably almost a year ago. And it wasn't until a month ago that I actually looked at it. Yeah. Well, we got a meeting that we didn't know that we had.
I'm telling you right now, it was already ordained. The mere fact that you pointed out, one of the very first videos that I put up, and by the way, I put it up for a very short period of time and took it right down.
Interesting. That was the anonymous video, right?
That was the anonymous video, and that was the warning to the churches.
Right.
And I only put it up to warn specific churches that they were to hear it, and they were churches that were that I know the people, I know the pastors, I know the head pastors, they're mega churches, and I let them all know this is for you.
And I didn't know that it was you when I responded to it.
No, but I remember watching your video, and you were like, "Man, Anonymous is on it! I'm telling you, they're on it."
And they were. I was right.
Yeah, you were. And here we are having a conversation about these very things.
That's amazing. What do you think about Laura Eisenhower?
Laura Eisenhower, I think, I haven't really watched a whole bunch of her stuff, but it's kind of for people like Laura, for people like Paul, I can't remember his last name, former defense minister for Canada, and an acting prime minister at one time. I don't know whether you've seen any of theirs. There's validity to everything that they're saying. The things that they're talking about UFOs and aliens. I mean, Paul Hellyer. This is a guy that's former defense minister, has very little of his life left, ran the military for Canada.
Oh, yeah, I know you're talking about. Oh, somebody did a video on YouTube that said I was satanic. Okay, that's happened before. No big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Do you call yourself a Christian, Derek?
No, because see, if you ask me, are you a Christian? I'll say it's impossible for me to understand what your understanding or your definition of Christianity is. You've got 33 or 40,000 denominations. You've got more variations of the Bible. You got different, probably 10 or 20,000 different variations of the denominations that aren't big enough to even know about.
I don't know what Steve's questions is. There's 300 people here. They're going by as fast as they can. Steve's going to have to ask it again.
Steve's question, please. WSO Steve is speaking, boys. Oh, Steve WSO, he had a question.
I know, but I haven't seen it. I just keep seeing answer Steve's question. I didn't see Steve's question.
I'm scrolling back to Steve. Steve, why don't you just text me? Ask me.
Somebody says, do you have an ascension timeline?
The ascension timeline, I can tell you this much. Let me give you a couple different examples of what I think of ascension.
Christmas.
I would say rapture. If many people have been led to believe that they're going to go outside and hold their hands up.
Phone died.
What's that?
WSO said his phone died.
Oh, well, what question did he have?
I don't know. It just says, sorry, my phone died. Is that Steve?
Yes. Steve, ask your question again so we can see it. We can't scroll through. There's too many thousands.
What does WSO mean?
WSO, I actually don't even know what his acronym means. Steve will tell us. Steve,
that's right. Somebody says you're not a Christian, Derek, so don't worry about it.
I'm not a Christian.
You're not.
Oh, so they know who I am, right?
Yeah, they know.
Oh, okay, good. Well, I'm glad you know. So if I ask somebody what a Christian is, if I ask you, are you a white guy?
I think the Anunnaki drove the star into the earth.
I do believe so. It was it was written as a war. It was written as a massive cosmological war in order to destroy Tiamat because she ruled. So to create the magnetic field, WSO says, to create the magnetic field. Yeah. So to create the matrix, the embedding of the sun.
Oh, so they did it on purpose to create the matrix.
Yes. To create the host body system. This is technology. We're talking just like when they imagine spaceships as being these metallic things or whatever. A spaceship probably looks a lot like a cloud.
I don't know what this means, Derek, but do you resonate with Naughty Beaver?
Do I resonate with Naughty Beaver? Do I relate to him?
That's a person, Naughty Beaver. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. I for a lot of the things that he speaks of, Naughty's a little, I would say, untraditional in how he explains things, but there's no question that he has a prophetic understanding of these prophecies. He's getting it. He's understanding it. That vision doesn't come from nowhere.
Interesting.
And he's correct in a lot of his, I don't even want to call them assumptions, right? But going back to that Christian thing again, because this is important. Anybody asks you if you're a Christian, what does Christian mean to that person? And if you agree in the affirmative, then you're agreeing to whoever they think it is. That in and of itself is in a matrix illusion, right? Then they're just trying to get you to fit into their little universe. Again,
what they're trying to do is take away your sovereignty, and they're trying to label you. So I resist any labels. You're not going to get an answer from me. Jeff, are you this or are you that? It's none of your damn business what I am.
Here it is, Jeff.
Off
Here
my
it is.
cloud.
Back to the whiteboard. Back to the whiteboard. Check this out. Guy says, are you a Christian? You say yes.
Boom.
Right?
He infringes on your sovereignty.
He's like, we're the same. No, dude, I could promise you, I am nothing like you.
Absolutely not. Is the moon what transmits the Schumann resonance? I say no.
No, the Schumann resonance comes from much further off than the moon.
Does it come from the earth?
Everything, I got to bring out this whiteboard again. So everything has a.
Jared, we got to take up a collection to get you an eraser.
Yeah, my hand's blue, my wrists are blue. So everything has a reflective. Okay, so again, going right back to the spiral, going to the twisted pair of serpents, right?
Yes, first.
Okay, so Schumann resonance has this. There will always be, the reason why you don't hear the Schumann resonance is because there is an inflection in the inverse that cancels it out. Okay, so Earth really is, you're not going to hear it. You're not even going to see it. But when you put on noise canceling headphones, what a noise canceling headphone does is it has a microphone and it sees the sound wave of the sound on the outside. And that sound wave looks like this, right?
Yeah.
And what it does is it sends the exact same signal in the inverse, as above, so below, like this, right?
That's how so it really is canceling.
It cancels it out. So there is no sound. It cancels it out. That's why you hit the electronic button and the sound from the airplane goes and vanishes.
Wow.
It's matching it. So the Schumann resonance, you do not hear, you feel it. It's not like it doesn't exist, right? You just can't hear it. So Earth is just one big noise cancellation of noise cancellation, not wave cancellation, because the wave still moves. You cannot throw a rock into the pond. You throw those waves go against each other. You throw two different rocks.
Is Saturn broadcasting? Is that what the rings are?
You know, I don't know whether Saturn's broadcasting. I don't have any reference scripturally. All I know about Saturn is that it has a hexagon at the top and a hexagon at the bottom, which
We're asking about that.
Which does not have any kind of rules and laws with it, because if it is spinning and we see it spinning, for it to have these corners doesn't jibe. Those corners are created. There is something there creating those things, and to be in that perfection. Now that hexagon also being part of our geometry, hexagon being Saturn, Saturday being the Sabbath of the Jews,
right?
The Jews being the God of this world's chosen people. The Hebrews being the God of this world's chosen people. Hence the 98% of patents and owning everything on the earth by proxy.
By a very small percentage of the population, we should say.
And WSO says, I am very suspicious of Saturn. Yes, I definitely am suspicious of Saturn. I would call Saturn a massive device. Now, think about this. I would look at Saturn. I would look at Nibiru and the planetary body that comes with Nibiru as the dark star. Now, think about this, is that I believe that this planet will be captured. That there will not be there. It will be captured in that pull. That there will not be sunlight. Our planet will be captured by the net pull of this system. So when Scripture speaks of there not being daylight or sunlight, that things stop for days. That's what would happen, and that we would be dragged along with it for a little bit. And when this thing lets go, we're gonna snap. And that what
happens to Earth? I mean, all hell breaks loose, right? It's over.
Again, rapture, right? So everybody thinks, so this is the harvest. This is the harvest. The dragon, the black star, this pull. People think, oh, I can't wait till Jesus Christ comes. I'm going to go up in the clouds and meet him. That's death, folks. You're going to be harvested. This is where it's been lied to. This is where I talk about that me coming into enlightenment, Jeff coming into enlightenment. This is the rapture from the spiritual standpoint. From the physical standpoint, that rapture, that's death. It doesn't matter whether you get sucked up in the clouds. You think, oh, I'm being taken by Jesus. If your soul is still nasty, he's going to eat you. Your energy to him.
And who's him?
Enemy.
The enemy. Got it.
Call them that. They call it the Draconians, right? The Draculas, the energy suckers. Whatever name you want to call.
Think that, why can't so many people? Let's stop these guys that are saying I'm satanic, but got way too much press in this chat room. And if you mention their name again, I'm going to start pulling out the comments. Why are there so many people that think they love God that can't tell that it's really the enemy that's talking to them?
Because it's going to make them have to restructure everything they thought they knew.
Ah, that's right. It's going to turn down all their temples. It's
going to destroy everything, including their money, including their house, including their marriage. You've felt pieces
like this.
of this.
La, 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 la.
Yep. Don't tell me. I don't want to know. And it's amazing. You know, there's V for Vendetta, the movie V for Vendetta.
Yes, that was a good one.
When the investigator is, learns this truth. Look at the pain that he knows what they did, right? And he has to say to his colleague, first of all, put the little sensor down to make sure that they're not being bugged, but says, if we were responsible for this, would you want to know? That's the question. I don't think people want to know the truth because it's going to destroy them. They're not prepared for it. And that's why they're not called. For many are called, but few are chosen. Right? Who gets chosen? The ones that want to know and need to know. I call this, there are some of us that are here by force, and there are some of us here that are on a voluntary mission. That this is the shepherd leaving the 99 to go rescue the one. What I think is about to happen is the single largest rescue mission in the history of the cosmological systems.
Wow.
And we're here to do it.
Jeff, ask him about Project Quintus.
Not aware of it.
Yeah, me either. I have no idea about that. No idea about that.
I might know it in a different name. I've seen stuff like that. Largest jailbreak in history. Yes, WSL. Yes, it is.
You really think it'll be the largest jailbreak in history?
That's what this is. This is the largest jailbreak in history.
What we're doing is the largest jailbreak?
Yes. Because here's the reality. If we are
I was in jail, but it was only overnight.
Jeff, if we are what scriptures say, if the 144,000, if the souls really are as few as articulated, that means that your soul has many versions of it. Like I've said, as a starfish, you cut up a starfish. You can cut up a starfish into a billion little pieces, and it'll become a billion starfish, and all of them are the same starfish.
That's amazing. It's
okay. True. So our souls are the same. That you can cut us up into a billion pieces, and they're going to be individual souls. They're that powerful. And the enemy wants to manifest like batteries. So, hey, I'll do that and then build a full charge on that one and slice it and build a full charge on that one. It'll grow into a full one. So this is basically the largest torture chamber as well. So this is where you meet people and you feel like you know them. I don't believe, this is my personal opinion based on the text that I've seen and by visions that I've had. So I'm not going to say, oh, hey, this is in the Bible. I believe there are only 144,000 souls.
Period. Even though there's 7.5 billion people on Earth.
Yep. They're all derivatives.
They're soulless people walking around.
They're either soulless people or they're derivatives of the original 144,000. So
that's pretty fascinating.
So the reality is that our single soul, Jeff, all you have to do is save yours. And every soul that is a derivative of yours is saved. That's the multitude in Revelation after the fact. That you become in Christ and become the Savior for all of the derivatives.
Ah, now I get some of the things you've been saying to me. I see where you're coming from.
Right? So you don't got to worry about that because it's kind of like my family. They're guaranteed my blood, but they're guaranteed to be a part of my soul. That's why they automatically do things. That's why, like my father. Okay, my father, I didn't ever live with my father. I barely knew him. But yet I walk, talk, and say things, and I act like him. I know things that he knows. That's not by accident. We share not just DNA, but soul. We share blood. It's in the blood, right? So it's in the water. God is in the water. Water is the source of everything in this universe.
So it really is something in the water.
Yes, and get this. People, think about this for 1 second. This is probably the most important thing I can tell you.
Wow, that's saying something.
That if you think that Jeff and I aren't brothers, If you think that the person next to you isn't your brother, if you think the guy in Africa isn't your brother, if you think that black guy or that Mexican guy isn't your brother, you've got something to think about here. That there is no such thing as any water on this planet that isn't, is, and it isn't going to be. So the water that is on this planet is recycled. That the water that makes up more than 90% of your body was, and guaranteed to have parts of that was in Moses, that was in David.
Even the air we breathe is that way.
Even the air we breathe. We are literally part of each other, that it is impossible for me to be separated from you. The only reason we're separated is because of that reptilian brain that wants to just close my eyes while you're eating. It's crazy.
Yeah.
We are
Derek,
brothers.
one thing that I have found, and you've been a part of this, it's been an amazing last 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, but especially the last week. And I sit here knowing as strongly as I've ever known that there is a father and mother, that they are still interested in us, and that for some reason they will go out of their way to send very clear, very strong, very powerful messages to single human individuals, which absolutely blows my mind. Why do they do it, Derek?
So rephrase the question again.
The question is, I have irrefutable proof over the past week, at the week or 10 days, that not only are there divine ones, the father and the mother, not only are they still here, not only are they interested, but they will actually, the sovereigns of the universe, or at least this system, they will take the time to craft and send individual and specific messages to individual and specific human beings on this planet.
I have no question about that.
But why would they do it? They're God.
I wouldn't call them God because they're not source. They're a creation like you're a creation.
Okay.
Right? So they are a creation like you or I are a creation. They might be more advanced. They might be more evolved. They might have been around, a lot longer than we have. They might be serve a different purpose. It's kind of like in our planetary bodies. I look at this. I go, when people say, there's different planets and there's no such thing as life, right? When we go out looking for life on another planet, we're trying to find life that matches our version of life. Even though we have at the depths of the ocean life that exists and lives on things that is contrary to our life on the surface, right? So what are they thinking? That's an illusion in and of itself. That if, let's say, Saturn is made up of gases that we could never live in, and they say no life could exist on Saturn, what are you talking about? What makes you think that there isn't a created being that lives in that gas, that's their oxygen? What makes you so limited in your mind that you can't understand that life isn't relegated to this oxygen-breathing little meat suit that we're in? And we have evidence of that right in our planet, right at the depths of the ocean, of these creatures that exist in the exhaust holes of volcanic ash coming out, which is the most toxic crap ever, and they can't live without it. What are you talking about that there isn't proof? So when I look at these planetary bodies, I look at Earth, I look at all the planetary systems within our cosmos, and what I see is the artist's palette. I see different gases, I see water, I see different components, I see chemicals, I see different metals, all of the different things. That is the artist's palette, and Earth is made up of all of those components, right? So we are the gem of our universe here. Mom was made, right? So Mama standing on was made with all of every aspect of every single planet. Those are support systems for Mom, and the whole thing has been taken.
So this is the gem of this solar system.
We are the jewel. We are the universe. We are the proverbial little universe in the cat's necklace. When the guy says, "What's wrong with you humans that you think a universe is big?" A universe can be very, very small. And what he's really referring to is the universe that you are. You are literally, if you actually looked at your compounds, your makeup and everything, every one of us is a universe, a sovereign one. And the invader is the one at the crossing, which is hence what we go back to with the Vesca Pisces.
Absolutely. Scotty, can you hear me?
I can indeed. I was just putting on my headset because
Derek,
the air
let me
conditioning
introduce you
popped
to
on.
Scotty Roberts. Scotty's been on Coast to Coast many times. He's been on Ancient Aliens, and we do a show every Thursday night at 10 called The Consequential Rapscallions. And Scotty, this is Derek Rose, known as Global Witness, who might even be more interesting than you are.
I'll bet he is. I become boring some days. Derek, it's nice to meet you.
Very good to meet you as well.
And you can tell
There
that
we go.
Scotty Roberts is in Texas because he's wearing a Dallas Cowboys t-shirt.
That's right. There's my Dallas Cowboys t-shirt. There's my proof of life.
Scotty, tell Derek real briefly about your background.
Well, my background, as most of the listeners know, I was in Bible college, seminary, theological seminary, conservative fundamentalist Baptist seminary. Went on to ministry for a while in the early 80s, youth ministry primarily. Then I went into men's ministries and then drifted far away from it because I had a lot of questions and a lot of things that bothered me about church governance and church policy and church extra biblical things. And so I really drifted from it. And that was a good 25 years ago. So
you backslid all the way to Ancient Aliens.
I backslid all the way to Ancient Aliens. I will say I'm not an ancient alienist. However, I was on the show. So
interesting. Well,
so that's the quickie, you know.
Well,
in a nutshell,
all kinds of things here, Scotty. And you know, Derek, his channel's Global Witness. Tremendous amount of information, powerful information. And Derek, I hope you don't mind, but I definitely consider you a friend now.
Jeff, you know, I knew the second we spoke, I knew that we were friends. I knew, in fact, the very first time I saw you, as I said, I knew that it wasn't time for us to connect, but the very first time I saw you, I knew that we would be friends. I knew that we would be speaking. It's as though, you know, it's the perpetual deja vu, right? That I keep doing the things that I've already seen. It's quite, you know, Naughty Beaver, as they've spoken about, he also speaks of this. Steve Olson also. I've already seen it. I can't explain it. It's like I knew that I was going to be having these conversations with you, and that's why when you ask me and you're like, "Hey, this day," and I'm like, "Yep, that's it." I don't have to question it. I already knew it was coming.
I was a little surprised it was just that easy.
I can't explain it. I just knew it was already going to happen.
You know, when Jeff likes you, and says, "Will you come on the show?" and you say yes, he'll say, "How's 4 o'clock?"
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm going on in 5 seconds. Do you mind joining? Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Derek, have you ever listened to Rex Bear Leak Project?
I've only seen a few of his pieces, and you know, I don't, just like you, Jeff. I'm usually back in scripture, back in studying ancient scriptures, back in confirming things that I felt or answering some questions. So I don't really watch a whole lot of videos.
Me either.
So yeah, I'll just watch like a few minutes of it, skip through it, and get a gist of what they're saying. Because for the most part, they're just occupying time, so they got more ads in them.
And Scotty, let me before Derek has to leave, I wanted to get your response to I thought it was a very powerful statement he said, and this was conjecture a little bit, and Derek, if I misquote you, please correct me, that Derek believes that there's only 144,000 souls, and that the 7.5 billion here are either permutations of that soul or empty beings. How would you respond to that? Was that fair, Derek?
Yeah, I would just, to give some context to it, kind of like given the reference of the starfish, right? Cutting up a starfish into 1 million pieces, it'll become 1 million of the same starfish. That there's a reason why our memory is erased. It's so we can become individual beings. Looking at this as a host body system, looking at this as, you know, an energy system, looking at this as a reincarnation system. This is why you can maintain memories. You know, one person can maintain memories of the same person that 5 other people maintain the memories of that same person, and they can all be matched up. So to me, it looks like 144,000 souls that are split up, and because we're powerful, because we grow, and that those souls begin manifested, and that we have these relations. We find somebody we just get along with. We feel these things. It's because we are linked to them. So there's a lot less. I believe that's where the 144,000 come from. That 144,000 are the first that are essentially saved, that do ascend, and then later you've got the the masses. So those 144,000 become essentially the Christ-like figures, saving everyone that is attached to them.
I would say that's without having a full context of understanding what you've researched, why you've come to that conclusion. You just kind of gave it to me in a nutshell.
Yes.
My initial brush with the 144,000, of course, was in eschatological studies, and that the 144,000, biblically speaking, were going to be the 144,000, 12,000 Jews from each of the 12 tribes of Israel that could name their tribe in the time of the tribulation. If you're, post-tribulation, pre-tribulation, mid-tribulation, no matter what you were, it was during that time that 144,000 would be raised by a biblical eschatological calendar. So I would go off of that and say, without understanding what you've studied, what you've researched, where you've come from, that is a prophetic number, obviously. Because even if that were a true prophecy, and there's going to be all those people from the different tribes of Israel, there's probably not going to be 12,000 exactly from each one of the 12 tribes. So it's a prophetic number. But they are definitely listed in Scripture as being people who could name their tribe. I am of the tribe of Benjamin, type of thing. And that it was picking up this whole, as we learned it, you might recognize them as Jeff. I know you'll recognize them from evangelical ministry, and I don't know all of your background, but this eschatological calendar it's like the age of grace. Remember that term, Jeff? Plopped into the middle of
dispensationalism.
Right. It was the parenthetical dropped in there, and so the 144,000 come in when the Jewish prophetic calendar picks up again. So that was my understanding of it. So if I were just to have heard you and not had any kind of introduction from Jeff or know anything about what you're doing, I would go, wow, where did this guy get his information? That would be my first question. Mm-hmm. I'd be interested in it because it links into things I've been taught in the past.
I think it's
fascinating. I want to know what so that's my first blush with it without knowing anything else about it.
Well, first blush, as far as I agree with you, the 12,000, you're also speaking prophetic numbers, kind of like the number of saying 10,000 of my holy ones, right? 10 being the number of complete, meaning it will be more than enough people. It's not 10,000 people. It's just the right amount for the job, right?
Right.
A complete amount, right? So, and 9 being very much the number of woman, 6 being the number of man, 9 always being a very prophetic number, 144,000, 4 plus 4 plus 1, 9, 1,260 days adds up to 9. Everything's 9. How many fish were pulled up from the boat of Christ adds up to 9. 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. It's all about the mother, okay? It's all about the 9 being the female, the masculine being the 6, the 69 obviously having its own meaning. So with that said, also the tribes, the lost tribes of Israel, are lost because they don't even know that they're a tribe. So let's just take, the, and I'm not going to use, I'm just going to say the darker skinned people of the world, tribes.
Oh yes,
right?
our darker skinned brothers and sisters.
Yes, South American tribes within the tribe. So you've got the overarching Algonquin nation, right, of the indigenous tribes. You've got different variations of nations that were breakoffs of those. So they even got separated. So kind of the Tower of Babel is separating them. That the indigenous people on this continent are most likely the derivative of maybe 2. So you could take, say, Ephraim and Manasseh, right? So again, this is where the Mormons get theirs. All of these different people, the people, the lost tribes of Israel are only lost because they don't know who they are. But from the apocalyptic standpoint, the revealing when their consciousness is open, when they do know who they are, they're going to be able to say, holy crap, I'm of the tribe of Benjamin, right? They're going to say it.
Now, do you believe that this is intact, this scriptural eschatology, and that it's just hidden right now? It's something that will be revealed, I wanted to say magically or miraculously, whichever way you want to look at it? Or are you saying there are not literal people that exist? I think there are some Jews that exist today that believe they can trace their lineage to a certain tribe.
I'll tell you this.
So not all the tribes are lost. So
no, not all the tribes are lost, but let's keep in mind that Jews, if you understand, aren't all of the 12 tribes. Jews are you must be part of the tribe of Judah, tribe of Benjamin, or the tribe of Levi, right? So you have the king tribe, you have the Levitical priesthood, the Levites, so you have the law, and then you have the Benjamins, which were the Pharisees, right? So, or sorry, the priesthood of the Levites and the Pharisees being the lawgivers. So that's the hierarchy of it. For they say that they are Jews, but lie, but a synagogue of Satan. So the reality is, just like I say, the Father has his chosen people, which what I would call the chosen people would be the most that are diminished in this world today, the ones that nobody wants to hear about, the ones that are completely, that are the meek. You don't even know they exist practically, right? So indigenous tribes in Africa somewhere, those are the chosen people. The tribes here, the Hopi, the Blackfoot Indian, the Cherokee, these are the chosen people. The chosen people of the enemy would be the Hebrews of today, because the enemy is the God of this world, as scripture is pretty clear to say that he runs the world, he owns the world. And considering that the Jews own 98% of the patents in the world, invented the banking system, invented debt, invented interest, invented everything, not just invent it, but run it and own it from the sidelines, and sit over there and say, oh, but we're just this little dot on the map. Oh, just don't hurt us. That's all crap, right? Well,
you're forgetting we also invented guilt. We invented guilt.
Yes. So all of these
Derek,
things.
who runs Hollywood?
Well, who do you think runs Hollywood? Let me just tell you.
Derek's background, he was a bigwig executive with Paramount Pictures. Part of his background.
Part of my background.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Can I send you my resume?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm just
So
kidding.
one of the largest people, one of the largest agents, managers in all of Hollywood is a man by the name of Ari Emanuel. Okay. He happens to have a brother that was called, let me see his name, Rahm Emanuel.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that name somewhere before.
Okay. I know who Rahm is.
The tree doesn't fall, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. Okay. So let me just explain that. When it says, for they say they are Jews, but lie, they are a synagogue of Satan. The reality is Jesus coming to the Hebrews and saying, your father is Satan.
Yep.
He was recognizing who he was and who his bloodline was. And he might have been.
Now, it's interesting. My own family, my mother's stepfather, after World War II, married my mother's grandmother, and she already had 2 kids. And that was my mother and her brother. And he was a Jewish man by the name of Oscar Gould from Goldstein. He was prior to the war. And so my little family, my mother, my brother, sister, and I, we were the 4 goy, as I like to say, in an ocean of Judaism. And we grew up not very close to the Jewish family. But we knew them all. We would go visit my grandfather's mother in the Shalom home in Minneapolis.
Oh, nice.
And that's where I learned all my Yiddishisms. Even though I'm Scot, I'm Welsh Scot by heritage. So I grew up with from my lips to God's ears, and oy, and all of that was around me. But now they were Jews. I don't recall. Because I wasn't, I didn't research a lot of this stuff before my grandfather had passed away. And I never asked him if he knew what his tribe was. They were Hungarian Jews. And that's all I know about them. And I could ask.
Magyar. My wife is Hungarian.
What's that?
My wife is Hungarian. My daughters are half Hungarian. So I relate that, Magyar is a language that I've been around a long time. So I can. The one thing that I can do really well in Hungarian is cuss like a sailor.
Very nice.